number one, listen. Listen to your child, how they feel. Every child's different. Every experience is going to be different. Just take the time to listen. And number two, love your child. Whatever they have to tell you, love them unconditionally. You can help them on the path that they're on. Even if they're an adult child, you're still their mom or their grandma or grandpa, right? You can help them. And the last one would be just educate yourself. That path led me to such greater understanding. I'm so grateful for like Mama Dragons. They had a parachute program that I went through, and I literally sat at my computer sobbing as I listened. It was so beautiful. It was meant for all parents of LGBTQ kids.
What do you really know about people who are born transgender? Have you ever met someone who's transgender? Well, if you're like me, you're curious but hesitant to ask questions. Well, welcome to Demystifying the Transgender Journey. In our conversations with people who were born transgender, their families, friends, and the professionals who support them, we ask probing questions and discover insightful and educational answers. You can also find more information on our website, thetransgenderjourney.com. Now let's get right into today's episode. Welcome to another edition of Demystifying the Transgender Journey, brought to you by Women Who Push the Limits. We're delighted that you're here today. We've got a very special guest. I'm one of your hosts, Lynn Murphy, founder of Women Who Push the Limits, and our other host is Wendy Cole, a transition mentor. Now, we've teamed up to educate people about the transgender experience, people who were born transgender, their families, their allies, people who are around them, so that we can answer questions and educate people and inform people about what this really is. So we're telling stories from real people about real situations. And we've got such a great team here because Wendy and I have different experiences. We're both in our mid-70s. I'm a cisgender heterosexual woman who's been married for 48 years. She's a transgender heterosexual woman who transitioned when she was 67. So we come to this podcast with different experiences. And Wendy, I'm so delighted that you're going to introduce our guest today. Wendy?
Welcome to our podcast. I'm so glad that you're here, Staci. And I'm really excited to have Staci with us today. She is going to talk with us about her life as a mother of a transgender daughter. I've known Staci for a few years now, and she's been married for 30 years. She's a fitness instructor, personal trainer, and health coach. And she's just a wonderful, wonderful woman with 5 daughters now. And her middle daughter was assigned male at birth and came out to her at age 20. And she's been a Mormon for her entire life. And on that note, Staci, I'll let you tell us a little bit more about yourself before we go on.
Okay, thank you, Lynn, Wendy. I'm really glad to be here today to talk about my experience being a mom of a transgender daughter. I've been on this journey about 3 years now. My daughter came out to me, and it has been both beautiful and scary all at the same time. My family has been very supportive, her sister is supportive, and Mormonism really affected how I viewed my child when she first came out to me. But our family has a lot of fun. We have a lot of pets between all of us, and a house full of pets. And I have 1 grandchild, and I love being a grandma.
Wonderful. Thank you, Staci. I know before this experience, because one of the things that Lynn and I are trying to accomplish with this podcast is put information out there for people who are going through similar situations and for people in general to change their perspectives. Now, before your experience with your daughter coming out to you at age 20 and being active in the church, how did you feel about the views held by the LDS community before your family's experience? And did you even think about things that were going on with the LGBT community before that experience with your daughter, and then tell us how that all changed.
That's a good question. Back in the 80s, when I was a teenager, I remember being told repeatedly that the gay community was under the curse of God with AIDS. I remember that. I remember having a friend have a gay brother, and that brother was kicked out of their home. I remember very disparaging comments about LGBTQ, but then I didn't think about it again. I didn't think about it again for many, many years until my daughter started displaying some behavior that made me think she was gay. And so I started to read and started to study and look up what causes someone to be gay. What is this community like? And then my friend's son came out as gay, and I went to my first Pride parade for him, to support him. I had a nibbling come out, and as our family accepted that child, they are such a wonderful human being, we realized, boy, we need to learn more. So I started on my journey of learning. But during the time that my child had been attending seminary, which is a Bible study during high school every day, I remember her coming home and telling me that the teacher had told everyone that gay people were of the devil, and that if someone was gay, they were following Satan's plan. Our church, the Mormon church, my former church, came out with the proclamation to the family many years ago, which basically says that marriage is between a man and a woman, and gender is essential to Heavenly Father's plan. And if you do not follow this, then you are not following God. So that was really hard. That's what I learned. That's how I grew up. I didn't believe that a gay person was born that way. And I honestly had no idea about the transgender community. I did not have any experience up until I heard a podcast about 5 years ago. And then the ball started rolling.
Wow.
That's pretty heavy stuff to put on young people, isn't it?
Yeah.
To think that they're of the devil, especially when you were raised Mormon and your children were raised Mormon.
Yes, it's a high demand religion. It's not just go to church on Sundays. There's activities during the week, playing the church on Saturdays. It's a very, very high demand religion. And I honestly loved it growing up, but my children really suffered under it.
I can understand that. You're part of a community. Your entire social life is around that entire community. And everyone has the same thoughts and values for the most part, correct?
Yes, we were of one heart and one mind. We were Zion. That's what I had learned growing up.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Once your child came out to you, how did Mormonism affect your thoughts and affect your child coming out? And tell us what you think of your future with LDS, and is it possible even, I'm curious about this too, is it possible, I'm throwing a bunch of questions, is it possible even to change the church from within?
Those are a lot of things. I have heard many people say, stay in to help the changes, but it's really hard to stay in when you're hearing negative things about your child almost every Sunday, and from our general authorities as well. It's very, very challenging.
I would imagine also too, as a woman, changing from within would not be very possible or even accepted in that environment. That
is true. The leaders of the church are male, cisgendered, heterosexual men, and
misogynistic.
Yeah.
Never mind.
I do feel like women are valued. It's just in a different realm, where we are valued as mothers and caregivers and nurturers
and homemakers. Yes,
which I was for almost 15 years. Yeah.
Well, Staci, can you tell us about your daughter's coming out story? I'm interested to hear. You talked about the Pride parade that you attended and that you listened to this podcast. Did you have any notion that there was something going on there, and what happened when she came out to you?
Well, I originally thought she was gay, like I said, and I just was waiting. But I believe that our religion, that Mormonism really affected her ability to come out to me, because she thought that I would disown her. She thought that I wouldn't be happy, that I would, be very, very, very sad, because it would destroy our eternal family. So she really hesitated to come out. And I'll be honest, getting back to Wendy's question, normally when my children talk to me, I'm very, very open. But I think she already knew that I had some reservations about this because of how I raised her and how the Mormon Church had taught her as well. I feel like Mormonism actually helped me to, as my child came out, Mormonism did help me. And it helped me in that I had already formed a relationship with God. I already knew that God would hear and answer my prayers. I already felt that I had the ability to help my children and guide them through personal revelation. So before my child came out, and this was around the time I went to the Pride Parade, I went to our temple and was fasting and praying to know what God thought about LGBTQ people. And so I prayed and asked God what he thought in our temple. And what came to my mind was a scripture in 1 Samuel 16:7, which basically says that the Lord doesn't see as man seeth, the Lord looketh upon the heart. And I knew in that moment that that is what I was supposed to do, that I was supposed to try harder to look at people's hearts and what they felt inside, not their outward appearance. And that honestly, that personal revelation I received really changed my life and my outlook, that I knew that God loved the LGBTQ community. And
so you were able to separate your faith from the religion, it sounds like. You still had, and I think what I'm hearing you say is you still have that deep faith, but not covered in the religion. Is that correct?
Yes, and I was still very much in the religion. I was still very much entrenched. So yeah, I know that it hindered me initially when my daughter came out to me. It hindered me in accepting who she was. Initially, I did go through.
Way?
It hindered me because I was told gender is eternal and that you can't change gender. And so I was confused, my beliefs versus what I have seen in my child. I knew she was very feminine. I knew her gentleness. And so I was doing the mental gymnastics. It was very confusing to me how I could love my child so much and know how good she was and know her heart. And then to have this other part of me that was like, this is bad. This is of the devil. So it was very confusing for a while. Yeah.
So I interrupted it in there. Do you feel like telling us her coming out story, the actual time she talked to you about that?
Yes. So my daughter came out to me at a time where she was feeling very, very down, very depressed, and I knew something was wrong. And at the time, I had been listening to podcasts and reading books, and I was in the middle of reading a book called A Walk in My Shoes by Schilaty, and I was listening to their podcast called Questions from the Closet. And from that podcast, I was led to a group called Lift in Love. And on their podcast, I heard a lady, her name is Anita. She talked about gender assigned at birth. I'd never heard that phrase before. So the next day I was with my daughter talking with her, and she was expressing great distress. I could just feel there was a lot of distress mentally or somehow. I didn't know what it was. And I had asked her already one time, and I guess you're not supposed to ask this, but I already did, if she was gay, and she said no. But I asked her, are you unhappy with your gender assigned at birth?
Wow.
And her face showed me that yes, that was it. And I just held her and we cried together. And in that moment, I just knew I would never hurt her. I would always try just to be a good mom for her. That's another thing I learned out of Mormonism. Your highest calling is being a mom. And so I dove deep into learning about what it means to be transgender. And as I did that, it opened my eyes to the reality of all beautiful people and genders and sexualities. And it was so enlightening to learn about a community that I actually knew nothing about.
So you studied a lot about that, read about it, and did you work together with your daughter to investigate, to learn things? Had she investigated? Did she lead you in any of that?
She already knew who she was since she was 11 and just decided she was going to live the way that she was born because she wanted to make me happy.
And that is so indicative of a couple of things. When babies are born, the doctor assigns the sex right then and there based on the physical anatomy and the genitals between the legs.
Yeah.
But gender is between the ears, not the legs.
Yes, Wendy, and I also think gender is in a person's heart and their mind and their spirit. So I've had LDS people, and LDS is another name for Mormonism or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Those are all the same. I've had people ask me, well, what do you think her spirit is going to be in the next life? And I said, it is going to be female because it has always been female. And there is some disagreement on that with some people, and that's okay. I leave people space to believe what they're going to believe, but I know in my heart, I have 5 daughters, and I always have daughters.
Yes.
Hmm.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
And the fact that she knew from that age that
I'm not surprised at that either.
Yeah.
That's the same way Wendy was, right?
Almost everybody I've ever met in this community knows at an early age, but it's the socialization and anything else going on within the family life, such as the religious beliefs, that really frustrate them from being able to come out. And most people in the LGBT community come out as a means of survival. She was at a point, from what you're describing, correct me if I'm wrong, but she was at a point where she was at her wit's end with how to deal with this.
Yes.
And telling you, and you educating yourself, how wonderful is that to go in and figure out assigned at birth? Because
well, it's so interesting that that term showed up, and then you turned around and you opened the space for her to tell you this.
exactly.
I'm a believer not in coincidence, but that there's divine order with things, and
Yes.
that showed up, planted the seed that you then gave her the opening. Staci, I think that's just beautiful.
Beautiful.
Yes.
And in my belief structure, it's the universe that opened that path for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The Holy Spirit or God or the universe. I allow people to call it whatever they want to call it.
It's all energy.
Yes, I believe that positive energy or God came to my mind to help me to know where to look. And that I also believe God cares so much about my child that he wanted me to know that this is what she needs help with. And I think it's a miracle that our family was able to shift.
Could you tell us a little bit about who you admire within the LGBT community, the moms and people that you've met? Tell us a bit about that.
I've talked to so many moms. They are just amazing people. I've been so grateful to be able to be a part of many communities with Lift and Love and Mama Dragons. I would say just recently, the 2 moms that have really affected me are Lupe Bartholomew. She is David Archuleta's mom, and he made a song called Hell Together. And that song just touched my heart so much. And her ability to step away from the Mormon church also was just such an example to me. And I just love her. And I can't wait to meet her next month at the Love Conference in Salt Lake.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm super excited for that. Another one is Jamie Lee Curtis, and she has a trans daughter, Ruby. And she just had a little post on, I think it was Instagram or somewhere on social media, where she spoke to transgender parents, the parents of transgender kids, and basically said, I see you. I know this is hard. And her words were so supportive that I just felt such love for her and grateful that she could open up and share how she loves her child. And I felt supported and seen by her. And I think it's hard to really express the amount of grief that happens when you have a transgender child and the expectations you had of their life have completely changed, have shifted. It is a real shift. And I think there were many, many nights that I just prayed to God and just said, why did you give this to our family? Why my child? And I have not got an answer to that prayer yet. And I was angry at God initially. But then I felt like God was calming my soul and just said, I will guide you. And so that's what I'm trusting. I'm trusting that God's going to guide me on the path with my child and with all my daughters, because they all have challenges and I want to be the best mom for them.
You got a challenge that you have risen to and that you're helping others because of this.
In so many ways.
I don't feel that way, but
Staci, you're such an example, such a positive example to people. When you hear of all these other horrible stories, and I know your heart was broken, I can see it, I can't internalize it, but the grief that was there, what you were saying about the expectations that you had for your son, that now in an instant just didn't have time to ease into this, just instantly.
No, it was one day to the next. It was the plot twist. And I would like you to refer to my child as just my child from the past instead of the gender. Does that make sense? If you don't want to say daughter, that's fine, but just say, because that feels better to me, because that person that they were before is not there, and yet they're still the same person. It's a very interesting thing to wrap your head around.
And that's where people get in trouble trying to understand things, because they can't wrap their head around it. So Wendy's always used the term accepting rather than understanding.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. And instead of saying that being gay is a challenge, you say being gay is your experience. You are experiencing same-sex attraction, or you're experiencing something instead of it being challenging, even though truly it is challenging, I'm sure, although I am not. But I see that it is challenging, but it is also part of our human experience. It really was.
Do you want to talk about a little about how it affected your family and how they responded to it, how you shifted?
How your friends and other people came into your world with that. How did they feel? What were your experiences?
Initially, my husband and I kept it to ourselves because we mourned together.
Mm-hmm.
We feel like we lost a child, but no one knew. It was just my husband and I together, holding each other, crying, trying to figure it out. And that was really hard. I cannot express how challenging that is to see a world around you, to see our religion, to see politics, to see society not accepting of human beings, and know that our child is one of them. And it was super, super challenging and emotional. I didn't let my daughter see me cry. I just went to my closet and prayed and cried alone and just said, God, please help me to know what to do and be a good mom. And then my daughter decided she wanted to tell her sisters. So this is the most beautiful thing. I have to say, of course there was fear and I was scared and it was hard. But having a transgender child is one of the most beautiful experiences of my life, because I have watched her grow. I have watched her blossom. I have watched her transform, literally. And it is beautiful. When she came out to her sisters, one of them said, I feel like I'm just now getting to know who you are. And they hugged, and one by one, she told her sisters. And the youngest said, just without a beat, cool, and just gave her a hug. It was so touching for my husband and I to watch her sisters embrace her, and every one of them did, because she is so loved by our family and always has been and always will be.
So they knew her heart too.
Yes.
Isn't that wonderful?
It really.
That's beautiful. That's such a beautiful experience. And she's so lucky and so fortunate to have two parents like you and your husband and her wonderful sisters.
I know that because I've talked to many, many families. I've talked to many, many mothers who have trans children. And if one parent is against and the other is for, or both or are against the child, or there's a sibling who hates transgender, literally that is so hard and challenging for their family. And I've watched it. I've seen it for the last 3 years. I've been on with other moms, talking with them. And yes, I feel like she's very lucky, blessed, and we're grateful too.
That support is so impactful, especially at her young age, even in her early 20s. It's really important.
But it's a difficult enough thing to do, even just to come out to you. You opened the space for her. But if she hadn't had support, and I feel so bad for the people who don't have the support, try and do it on their own. But so you all were in this together. Meanwhile, it's so interesting you're talking about grieving. It's like you lost a son and you gained a daughter, but there's still that loss there I think that's hard for people to, or maybe people just don't recognize that happens.
Yes.
I think you said something to me when we talked before, like if you'd lost a child, the whole neighborhood and the whole church would have been bringing you casseroles. Nobody even knew that this was going on. How difficult was that for you?
It was very challenging to know that I was in a place of great mourning, and I just had to put on a happy face for everybody else, because if they knew, I figured they would be accepting. And so we didn't talk about it, and also respected my daughter's wishes that people didn't know at that time. And when she did come out and say, hey, I said, can I tell grandma and grandpa? Can I talk to my siblings? By then it had been about 6 months, and she said, yeah, I think that's okay. And I wrote an email to my family, talked to my parents, and then I wrote an email to my siblings. And I felt so grateful for their responses, that they would always love her and that she was welcome in their homes. So I do feel really lucky.
When did she start transitioning socially, dressing differently? Because it doesn't sound like she did that right at the beginning when she came out.
I'm going to say it was about a month later.
Oh, okay.
But it was very, very slow.
Hmm.
It was very, very slow. There was no rushing. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, kids are turning trans and they're transitioning so quick and they're having surgery when they're 11. And none of that is true. None of that is true. Even hormones, there are hormone blockers, but those are completely reversible. And most people I know, it happens pretty slowly. They're making sure, right? They're trying to figure things out too. So it was all very, very slow. In fact, she didn't even tell us her name for a year after.
Wow.
She wanted to be sure that this was what she wanted and that it was for sure that she felt right about it. And every step of the way, she was happy. She felt right about it.
Good.
Yeah.
How did her friends respond? Friends that she had in school, and she was in college then, I'm guessing, right?
Yes, she was in college, her last year of college. And I would say some of her friends, she distanced herself from them so that wasn't an issue. She knew which ones of her friends were transphobic, and she just stopped communicating with them. So the few friends that she had left, she knew were supportive, and they were good. And they asked questions, and she just answered. Just
nice.
And the friends from the church, she had also distanced herself from all the Mormon kids. It just was too hard to be friends with them, knowing that they believed that the devil had her when the devil didn't.
How did her personality change? Did you notice anything like that?
I would say she was still the same quiet person, funny. She has a very cute sense of humor. So I don't feel like her personality or any of that changed. She's still who she is, loves the things that she loves. And yeah, I don't feel like she's changed all that much.
I know Wendy talks about her personality change when she transitioned. And so it was interesting to see whether that made a difference to her.
I feel that is because she went through this transition in her early 20s, which is what I had tried to do.
Yeah.
But, and I think it's a lot easier because she didn't have the life experience and all of the other things already. She was in college. When I had surgery at NYU, I met girls who were between like sophomore and junior year who were checking into the hospital and having their surgeries. And they transitioned in college. Huh. And I think that makes a huge difference for people. So she chose her name and took her time doing that. Mm-hmm. How did she feel and how did you feel the first day she went to class as herself?
I think it was just a beautiful, liberating experience. When she changed her name with the college, all of her professors were great, accepted her new name. She changed it legally with the courts. Our family was there to support her. Yeah, I think she loves her name. We love her name. It fits in our family so perfectly. Good. It is just, yeah. I had a really neat experience with her name actually before she told me. And I was reading the Bible because I'm a very religious person. I read the Bible every day. It's part of my life in Mormonism and aside from Mormonism. And I was reading a chapter about so-and-so begot so-and-so begot so-and-so. And in my mind, I was thinking, oh, I don't really care who begot who. And these names, I don't even know who these people are. And then the thought came to me that names are important. And I just paused for a second, like, names are important. What am I supposed to learn from this chapter I'm reading? And then I got the feeling that I needed to go and look up the name that my daughter was possibly going to choose. She told me she was using the first letter of her dead name. And so I did like a Google search like you would if you're having a baby. And I found about 100 names that started with that letter and wrote them on a paper. And then I circled about 25 of them that I thought were just really pretty names. And then I put a star next to the top 10, like names that I was like, okay, if she was this name, I would love it. So I took her that paper later that day and I said, hey, I just want to know if your name is on this list. And she like looked at it for like a full minute. She read the whole 100 names or so. And she looked at me and she said, yeah. And it circled and starred. And then I knew that what I had written down, what I thought was a beautiful name, she had also chosen. So it was just kind of like me telling her in a very gentle way, it's okay to change a name. I'm going to love it. And so that was one of our positive experiences.
That is such a beautiful, positive experience to have your mom actually support you in changing your name and being who you really are. I'm just so proud of you. This is amazing.
Coming from you, but at the time I really didn't know anything. I was still in the throes of, you know,
you had the grief, you had the religious experience,
sorrow, joy,
all the contrast that was going on.
Yes. And I did have some people in my life that I love very much and are my dear friends talk very negatively about transgender people. And I took the time to listen to them because I needed to hear the other side. And these
would you care to share some of those? Without
identifying my very good friends. One of them sent me emails that just talked about how bad it is to transition and that biology is science and there's no changing genders. And a lot of the things that she wrote me, I looked up and I studied and I wanted to know, what am I getting myself into, right? If I support my child. And the other friend of mine is a mother with a trans daughter. And she continuously gave me videos and things about detransitioning. And I was like, okay, if I really want to know the truth, I've got to dig into both sides. And I did. And I dug into what if, right? What if this happens? What if that happens? What if all of a sudden she wants to transition back? All of those things. I looked into it because I was not going to be afraid. I was going to gain more knowledge, and knowledge is power. And I needed a lot more knowledge than I had at that time. So I am actually grateful for those, I guess, situations with my friends that were hurtful, because it did help me to grow and learn. And I have to say that if someone were to ask me if my daughter was going to detransition, my answer would be 100% no. And of the more than dozen trans women I have got the privilege of knowing over the last 3 years, 0 of them are going to detransition. And so I know that's a thing out there, right? The 1%, that it is possible, but I also know in my heart that it is from the pressures of job and family and other things that are pressuring that person.
And religion.
A transgender woman does not detransition.
So the religion could play a part in that too.
Yes.
On
yes.
what's going on.
Yeah.
And like you're saying, it's a small population that's doing that. And I don't know, I have no scientific information about this, but it seems like that if you don't have the support of family, if you don't have the support of friends, if the religion is telling you that your eternal soul is whatever, lost forever, damned, the devil's work, then, I can see that some people might say, okay, the pressure I knew of living an inauthentic life is less than the pressure of trying to live an authentic life. Does that seem like what your experience, what you've seen?
What I have seen is exactly that. Or they trudge forward without their families, and they reject their families because their families rejected them first. And they move on and they find other families and people to support them. The other alternative that I have seen is they take their lives. They don't want to live in a world that doesn't accept them, or a family that doesn't accept them.
I know.
So you've got to know that gender affirming care is life-saving care. It is life-saving care for the person and for their families. It was life-saving for us. So,
right. And LGBT people don't come out because they have courage and they're doing all of that. They come out to survive. Yeah. It's a survival thing that you reach. And that's what your daughter reached at 20. She just couldn't go on anymore as that person that wasn't her.
Yes. Because that was inauthentic for her to be. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Have you met others who have had the puberty blockers or those types of things? Your daughter was too old for that when she transitioned and she came out. Have you met others who have had that type of gender affirming care?
I know of the parents. So I don't know their children personally because I'm on support groups for parents. Okay. And so, yeah, I know kids that are getting puberty blockers and how life-saving that is for them. And then the hormones don't start till later on. And again, that is with the help of a therapist, a psychiatrist. It's not as easy as the media portrays it to be to get hormones. And so that needs to be said first and foremost. And also that there's no danger in these hormones. Cisgender people take hormones all the time.
Yeah.
So,
and cisgender people have surgery all the time.
I was watching the news last night, and one of our favorite politicians, shall remain unnamed, made the statement that it's really bad in the schools. The teachers are educating the kids on changing their gender, and your kid can go to school and come home as a different person and even get the surgery. And
Yeah,
No
that is
wonder why so many people are so confused and stick to these beliefs that, were so offensive to your child and to your family. That's what they're hearing from politicians as well.
that's obviously not true. And not just because it's obvious, but also I was a substitute teacher for many, many years, and there is no pushing of any agenda on any children of any age. And in fact, it's the opposite. More of the teachers are not affirming, at least in my town.
Right.
So I think that it's sad that politicians are able to say things that are blatantly lies, but I know that is not true.
Right. We both know that the medical profession, therapeutic professions are very much into making sure that this is the right thing for anyone going through it.
Right.
And there are gates.
Yeah.
And one of the other things that the LDS Church promotes is having a lot of children, and that's the job of a mother and a father and raising the children. And so some of the comments opposed to gender reaffirming, at least surgery and hormones, is that, oh, these people won't be able to have children. That's just a horrible thing, not just in the Mormon church, but apparently that's a horrible thing if people don't have children. I don't have children, so according to certain politicians, I'm not as invested in this country. That we'll leave the politics aside. But for you, who were raised Mormon and have a lot of children, what was the impact of knowing that your daughter could never have children, at least biologically have children? Not that she couldn't adopt, but biologically have children.
First of all, the hormones don't always make it so someone can or cannot have children. So that needs to be, unless there is surgery, a trans woman, trans man can have a child. But it did cross my mind, if she takes hormones, that there would be the possibility of no biological children. And that was one of the processes of grieving that I had to go through, that if she never had children, then that was going to be okay. And we talked a lot about it. Like, do you want to take hormones? Is this what this might happen? And she said, this is what I need to live. So it wasn't a question of children or not children. It was a question of living.
And that was a key word for her. This is what she needs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's something that people don't understand either, is one, you're born this way. Two, it's not a choice. And three, she needed to do that. She needed to do exactly what she did.
Yeah, I think that is a real disconnect between most of society and parents like me, is that this is life-saving care for my child. Mm-hmm. It's not just a willy-nilly wanting to do something different. It's life-saving. Gender-affirming care is life-saving.
Yeah, suicidal ideation continues throughout your entire life, struggling with this. It doesn't go away. And none of this goes away. So I think that's such a beautiful thing that she actually got the opportunity to transition and be her authentic self.
Yeah. Staci, what's her life like now? It's been a few years since she's transitioned, right? Would you say 3 years now?
Yeah.
So what's her life like now?
Good. Yeah. Job and apartment and friendships. So it's good.
Nice.
So she's built new friendships. She happy in her job?
Yeah.
Is she finding acceptance and acceptance in herself and how she's doing with that?
Yes, I think that's going to be an ongoing process, honestly, because how many years she presented male compared to how many she's presented female. And so it will just take time.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I've found that with my own experiences. It does take time. And it continues to evolve. And I think you're going to see a lot of evolving from her over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
Does
Well,
she,
all of my daughters are evolving and changing and growing, and it's just part of life.
Exactly.
Mhm.
That's the other thing that people don't understand is life is all about change and possibilities. And your daughter took a really profound step forward in defining her own life and her own existence. And what you've done in order to support her, I can just imagine the grieving process you went through. How long did that actually last? And are you still in some ways grieving, or has that over the last 3, 4 years, has that started to settle in or?
That's a good question. I feel like it was an entire year, at least. It was a full year of the grieving process until she was able to change her name legally and go to school. And honestly, now there is moments of grieving, the expectations, but small moments. There is more celebration than anything. Like not just celebration, but like true joy in our relationship as mother-daughter. And we are so close. So it is wonderful. It's like I have 5 daughters and we all share clothes. We all just laugh together. I just love being a mom of girls.
Oh, that's beautiful.
and it's
Thank
so
you.
wonderful that you support her in that and that you can be girls together.
Yeah.
That's just such an amazing thing. You go through these challenges, and I know I'm not a Bible scholar like you are, but you read about some of these things in the Bible, the forged by fire kind of things. You go through these challenges and come out on the other side. And you would never imagine the life that you have now with her that is so different and so close. Not that you wouldn't have been close with your son, but does that seem to ring true for you, that you've gone through the fire and that you come out different on the other side?
I've actually never considered that because I was always close to her, even as a child. Very much so. I remember she used to brush my hair at night and then ask for me to pay her $1. I mean, just such cute little things. I've always felt close to her. And I consider even the past, I consider her my daughter in the past. I just didn't know it. So I refer to her as my daughter in the past as well.
I've noticed that you always refer to her as her, using female pronouns. So
Yeah.
even when you're referring to her when she was in a different body.
Yeah.
Was that something hard for you and your family to use those pronouns and use her new name?
It actually wasn't that hard. I know that we did slip up initially a couple of times, but it wasn't that hard to switch it since we had already gone through a name change with our non-binary nibbling. And so we were like kind of prepared for that. And also we knew it was important to her. And everything I had read and everything I'd listened to with podcasts had said that the person's perspective was, this is who I am. This is how I want to be referred. And so I feel like it was a sign of my respect for my child's personal desires to say the correct name and pronouns.
You all have such love and respect, but that's just amazing as parents. And congratulations isn't the right word, but thank you for being so loving and such respectful parents. That's amazing. Lucky you and lucky family.
Yep. And that's also something that, because I've often said about my own situation, I was never a man. I lived as one, but that was not by choice.
Yeah.
So I can just empathize with everything that she went through and how she must be feeling at the moment. It's just wonderful.
Another big issue that we hear about in the news, which much ado about nothing, is bathroom situations. We would love to hear your take on that, your stories on that. What's been your experience with, oh my God, bathrooms?
Yeah. Again, my experience is different and everybody's going to have a different experience. And I recognize that. First and foremost, I have to say that the safety of our children, young boys and young girls in bathrooms, in their homes, in churches, in schools is imperative. It is so important that they are safe. I do feel like sexual assault is something that we need to look at clearly. Sex trafficking, all those things are extremely important that we keep our eyes wide open to what is happening in our society to protect our children.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the bottom line for me, protecting our children. Now, how I protect my child is different because she is a trans woman. So my experience has been, we look for gender neutral bathrooms when we're at the mall, when we're traveling. I know where all the gender neutral bathrooms are in my town and in certain distances that we're traveling. I think the hardest thing for me was traveling through Utah and Idaho. And in doing so, we had to use bathrooms that we were not familiar with, the town or where the gender neutral bathrooms were, if there were any at all.
Right.
And so we would stop at rest stops and we would travel early in the morning to avoid being with other people. There was one situation where we stopped at a fast food place and I noticed there was probably 10 young girls in line in the restroom. And I just turned to my daughter and said, this is not a safe place for us to stop. And we got in the car and drove somewhere else because we both wanted to respect those girls that were standing in line. And I didn't want my daughter feeling uncomfortable. And I also didn't want those young girls in line feeling uncomfortable. So I think that a lot of times the news portrays the bathroom situation as being dangerous for other people, but it is also dangerous for my child. It is also dangerous for her to be in a situation where she is maybe not treated well, or maybe she has someone looking at her with contempt. And I did not want that to happen. So we were very careful in traveling.
People base their decision quickly on immediate appearance, whether it's male or female, because our minds aren't really comprehending, like you were talking about, gender neutral or people who look androgynous. Did your daughter, what was her appearance that concerned you about going into a woman's restroom?
She does dress very much like a non-binary person. So I would not say my daughter has ever dressed in, the dresses, heels, makeup, none of that. It's more of a very casual, I know who I am and I don't need to dress up. And that's perfectly fine. So yeah, she doesn't maybe pass for the way that a lot of women pass. And I think that makes her more of a target.
And that's so sad because
It is.
people are trying to define women and men by their outward appearance. And if you don't look like Barbie and Ken, then who are you and how do we figure out, as if people really need to know? We don't need,
Right.
are we having someone checking people at the bathroom to check their shorts? It's crazy. You go into a stall, you close the stall, you use the stall, you come out, you wash your hands and you go.
You just have to make sure your feet are oriented in the right direction.
Oh, I just got that. I do think it's very interesting. It's dehumanizing to make a person feel like they can't use the restroom or that they're not safe, or
Right.
to make up this fearful thing that someone else isn't going to be safe if you're in the restroom. It is unkind and it is dehumanizing. I will say that when I was in Seattle a couple months ago, I went to, I think it was a Starbucks downtown, and there were I think there were 6 or 8 bathrooms, all single stall bathrooms, all gender neutral. And then there was one long sink for everybody. I have never felt so safe in a bathroom because every bathroom was gender neutral. And it was the most amazing feeling that all people, all humans can be safe. Our bathroom situation needs to change somehow so that there are more single bathrooms for either families or gender neutral humans.
So does she feel unsafe in bathrooms when you're not there? Does she have another woman go in the bathroom with her, or is she fine on her own?
No, where she lives, she's fine. There's a lot of gender. Yeah.
Good.
All right. Because that seems like a ridiculous issue. Like I said, much ado about nothing.
Yeah.
In general, that's been my experience, and talking with other people. We just go into the bathroom to take care of your needs. And
Human
leave.
needs.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we want to talk about the newest, whatever it's called, proclamation that the Mormon Church
Policy.
Oh, yeah.
So do we want to talk about the newest policy that the Mormon Church put out recently and how that impacts people who were born transgender?
Yeah. It's impacted a lot of people. Well, number-wise, no. But the people I know. Yeah.
So how did you react when you saw that new policy?
When I saw the new policy with the LDS Church, I was shocked. I couldn't believe that they would put something out that they claimed was ministering when really it was dehumanizing, telling transgender people they had to go to the classrooms of their gender assigned at birth, the restrooms, unless someone was guarding the door. It wasn't Christ-like. It wasn't what I believe as far as policies go, and it wasn't a human policy. It was a man-made policy. And when I realized that, I knew in my heart that this was not God's word, then I felt like it was important that I remove my name from the LDS Church and not be a part of it, which is really hurtful to my family, but it was important to me to remove my name.
Not being Mormon, I don't understand that process or that significance, but you're saying that was quite a significant step that you took to remove your name from the church rolls. Is that what that is?
Yes. And they negate your baptism and they negate your temple marriage. So that is supposed to be hurtful to you. But my beliefs have changed in that God knows my heart. And therefore, those papers don't matter because God, where I stand, and that I am still putting God first in my life.
Well, I see that you are still a very spiritual person. How do you think your spirituality is going to evolve now that you've separated from the church? Do you think you'll look for another church, more accepting, or basically do what I do, my own thing?
I think part of it, doing your own thing, is really important because you grow into what is important to you. So I still pray and read my scriptures. Things that I really loved about Mormonism, I have kept. I do attend a new church. I attend a new church that is gender and LGBTQ affirming. And my daughter has attended with me a couple times, and a very, very nice congregation. I would say my spirituality has changed to accept all religions. Last night we read a Buddhist prayer before dinner. And so we're just getting truth in all places around the world. Instead of just one religion and one path and one belief, we are seeing truth everywhere. And it is so beautiful. And the people that I thought were, of the wrong religion, I don't feel that way about them anymore. I say, what can you teach me? What can I learn from you? We went to a Jewish synagogue 2 weeks ago. It was so beautiful. We sang in Hebrew. It was so beautiful. It was spiritual. And so I still feel like there are many, many places to find truth outside of religion, and especially for me, outside of Mormonism.
That is so beautiful, Staci. It sounds like your relationship with God is just growing and deepening, and not only just with God, but with the whole world, with people.
And all of humanity.
All of humanity, the acceptance. And I love what you say, that you're looking for truth everywhere. What is the truth? And there's so much fear now. People are trying to stoke the fear to separate us. And what you're doing is investigating and bringing people together as human beings.
Yes.
Lovely. Thank you for doing that. Wendy, did you have any other questions now before we ask her if she's got any final words talking about resources? Or
Would you care to say anything to other moms or parents or grandparents? Any advice for them?
Yes, for sure. Talking with other parents and grandparents, it's number one, listen. Listen to your child, how they feel. Every child's different. Every experience is going to be different. Just take the time to listen. And number two, love your child. Whatever they have to tell you, love them unconditionally. You can help them on the path that they're on. Even if they're an adult child, you're still their mom or their grandma or grandpa. You can help them. And the last one would be just educate yourself. That path led me to such greater understanding. I'm so grateful for like Mama Dragons. They had a parachute program that I went through, and I literally sat at my computer sobbing as I listened. It was so beautiful. It was meant for all parents of LGBTQ kids. Beautiful program. I had a coach with Lift and Love. She helped me in my darkest hours to just bring to light the feelings and the fear that I had. And you, Wendy, I've been on coaching calls with you. I've loved it. I have felt like I can express my fears, my hopes, my doubts, my joys, and you completely understand. So in the education also needs to come help for your child, either therapy or coaching or psychiatry or something, because you cannot do it alone. And that speaks for the parents too. Get help for your child, get help for you, and take care of yourself.
one thing you said to me before was believe your child. When they tell you that they are a different gender, when they tell you what's going on, believe them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is very important.
They come out to you to survive, but it takes a lot of courage to actually tell somebody else, especially a parent they love so deeply, that I'm not your son, I'm your daughter.
I will say I felt so privileged to be the first person. And I have heard other moms talk about how their child told their friends first, or their teacher at school first, or some other situation, and how hurt they were. And again, every child's different in where they feel safe, in who they'll come out to, whether that's gay or transgender, or anything that they're holding inside that is in their minds hurting them, that's a secret for them. I feel very privileged that my daughter and I are so close.
Staci, is there any way people can reach you if they have questions, if they want advice or help or anything like that? Are you willing to connect with people that have listened to this podcast?
I would love to. You can put my email in the show notes, and also I'm on the Mama Dragons Facebook. I'm actually not on there very often, but you can find me on there with Mama Dragons.
So we'll get those links from you. We'll put those in the show notes.
Okay.
Thank you for doing that, because your approach to your daughter, just to the world, is so outstanding. And it shows that there are people like you in the world who understand. Well, not that they understand. Wendy keeps correcting me on that it's not that you understand the situation, but you accept it. You love your child. And what a beautiful gift that you've given to her and to your other children, and really to your friends. I think it's a gift to some of the people in your church who have known you for all these years and now see the change. There may be, there's resistance there, but there may be something going on there. Maybe you've planted a seed that they go, okay, Staci is doing this and we respected her, and now we're making out that the devil's got her, but maybe there's something there. So I'm hoping that all those seeds that you've been planting, that you, just by being who you are and taking care of your daughter and your family the way you do, that will help educate people, help them see this perspective. So we thank you so much for doing this today, for joining us. And I know our audience has enjoyed this. Staci, any final words?
Well, I just want to say thank you for letting me share some of my stories and experiences. I really would like to call out the politicians and the religious leaders, including my own, and society in general, and the movie makers of the past who have marginalized this group of people. And because as a mom, I was not prepared. All the ill spoken of the transgender community it's not true. It's unfair. And that trans people have always existed and they will always exist. And they are good, kind, smart, resilient people. I know they are because this is my child and she is beautiful and wonderful and I love her.
Thank you, Staci.
Staci. Thank you so much, Staci. You're so inspiring. And yes, I'm hopeful that your conversation with us today will help others change their perspectives and prevent somebody else from doing something more harmful to their child that they don't need to do. Accept their child.
I know the parents who are not accepting their children. I know them.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen them. So it's hard.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, again, thank you, Staci, so much for today. Thank you to our audience. I'm Lynn Murphy, and this is Wendy Cole. We've been co-hosting today in this podcast, Demystifying the Transgender Journey, where we're educating people about the experiences of people who are born transgender. Share this out, subscribe, like us, leave a comment. We'll comment back to you. We would love to hear your comments. We would love to hear what you have to say, and we will put Staci's information in the show notes today. So thank you. Tune in next time because we'll have another very special guest, and we would like to continue to educate you on demystifying the transgender journey. Thank you for joining us today on this episode of Demystifying the Transgender Journey. Remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode of our fascinating interviews. You can also find more information on our website, thetransgenderjourney.com. So until next time, stay curious and stay kind.